Retired General Kip Ward, and I'm honored to be standing here with other members of the United States Global Leadership Coalition's National Security Advisory Council, as well as our representatives, and we're particularly privileged to have Representatives Crow, Waltz, and Cisneros joining us. Thank you, Congressman. Since 9/11, we've been totally engaged in how we face our global threats. We know that military solutions alone will not do that. We represent over 140 retired 3- and 4-star generals and admirals of the National Security Advisory Council, who is part of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. We are here to deliver a message to the 106th Congress and to defend the resources required to support the Department of State, USAID, and our other nations' developmental agencies. We're also here to thank the hundreds of members of Congress, from the Freedom Caucus to the Progressive Caucus, for their leadership in recent years in supporting resources for America's diplomacy and global development activities. I had the honor of helping stand up America's first combatant command for the continent of Africa. In recent years, we've seen the threat rise from an expansionist China throughout the developing world. Their Belt and Road Initiative is on track to spend 7 times of the Marshall Plan as they build links throughout the world and beyond. That's why it's more critical than ever that America does not cut our civilian footprint around the world. From combating the second largest Ebola outbreak ever, to saving more than 17 million lives from HIV and AIDS, to advancing our economic interests and exports, these investments provide a huge return on investment in support of our national interests. I'd like to now turn over to General Wald.
Thanks, Kip. I appreciate it. Just as an aside, Kip replaced me at European Command. My name's Wald, his is Ward. They mix us up all the time. As you can see, Kip's the better looking one. First of all, our message today is simple. The letter that we're going to give to Congress is, number one, development and diplomacy are critical to keeping our country safe and prosperous. It's as simple as that. The investments, the Foreign Investment Fund, for every dollar we spend on foreign aid, we save $16 on combat deployment of our forces. I think that's one of the most misunderstood numbers of all. Not only do we save $16 for every dollar we spend of deployment, we also save the deployment of our young men and women going to places that many of you wish they never had to go to. In these turbulent times, America must not stand down from the challenges ahead of us. Kip mentioned China, the Belt and Road. We're in a big strategic competition with China and Russia to a certain extent. And this is the type of aid that we need to make our country strong overseas as well. As we see the military progress on the battlefield against ISIS in Syria and Iraq, we must invest in our civilian forces to maintain our hard-fought gains and prevent bad actors from filling the void. And that will happen if we don't fill that void. We are honored to stand with these veteran freshmen, members of Congress, who have taken up this mantle. We had a breakfast with several of them earlier today, and I will tell you, you've got an impressive freshman class of congressmen out there, fellas and women. We salute their service, both in uniform and now in the House of Representatives. You know, we have an all-volunteer military. We have an all-volunteer Congress as well. These people don't do it because it's money in it. They're doing it because they love their country. So I'd like to turn it over now to General Osmond to talk a little bit more about what we've been doing the last few years.
Thank you, General Wald. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be standing up here today with 3 veterans, individuals who have served their country in uniform and continue to serve their country today in the halls of Congress. Gentlemen, you know what this is all about. Over 140 retired 3- and 4-star generals and admirals have a message that they would like to give to Congress. So let me give you the first copies of that message. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, I'd like to take just a moment to actually introduce the 3 representatives we have today. First is Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado. Jason has a long and distinguished career of service for our country. He was in the Army's 82nd Airborne Division in Iraq. He has a Bronze Star from that. Joined the 75th Ranger Regiment for 2 tours in Afghanistan. The former member of our USGLC Colorado Advisory Board, which is outstanding, and now is a member of the USGLC's Veterans for Smart Power since 2015. Thank you, Congressman. Representative Michael Waltz from Florida, another impressive record, graduate of VMI, 20 years service in the U.S. Army as a Green Beret. Multiple tours in Afghanistan, Special Ops, Defense Policy Director for Secretaries Rumsfeld and Gates, and also the Counterterrorism Advisor for Vice President Cheney. He's the Vice Chair of the newly created FOR Country Coalition, a bipartisan group of veterans serving in Congress. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Representative Gil Cisneros, thank you. Democrat from California. 10 years in the United States Navy, rose to the rank of Lieutenant Commander, probably got promoted below the zone, Pete. Was the first of his family to graduate from college, attended college on a Navy ROTC scholarship. Now serves on the House Armed Services and Veteran Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, all three of you.
Thank you. Are we up?
Oh,
Go ahead.
are.
All right. Well, let me just very briefly, and I think I could speak for my fellow veterans here as well. As a Green Beret serving from West Africa to the Middle East to multiple combat tours in Afghanistan, our diplomats, our fellow Americans in USAID, the Peace Corps, and other parts of our foreign assistance apparatus are critical. They keep us out of wars. Military force should be the force of absolute last resort, or should be the option of last resort. Well, we have all kinds of options before we get to military force, and that's why our civilians are so critical to what we do. Unfortunately, once we're in a war, they are even more indispensable. And we found ourselves in tour after tour complaining that we didn't have enough diplomats. We didn't have enough of our USAID representatives, and we didn't have enough civilians by our side. So we stand shoulder to shoulder with them, and certainly as members of Congress, we fully support their agencies to be fully funded. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Waltz, and thank you, Generals. It's an honor to be surrounded by some of our nation's most decorated military leaders, men and women who have always put country above party and self and led us at times of peace and in war. And I have to say, on a personal level, when I was a captain in the Army, it was never a good thing to be surrounded by this many generals and admirals. I still get a little bit nervous, but it's a good thing today. It's no coincidence that at a time when we have the lowest number of veterans in Congress, gridlock and partisanship are at an all-time high. But there is hope. The 116th Congress has the largest class of freshman members in more than a decade. And while our experience serving our country is varied, it is rooted in the shared ethos of servant leadership. As a former Army Ranger, I know firsthand what makes the U.S. military the strongest in the world. But I also know the real consequences of military involvement and that it should be used, if used at all, after all other options are exhausted. Keeping our country safe and promoting the values of peace, democracy, and human rights require not just a strong military, but a multifaceted effort of diplomacy, humanitarian aid, economic development, and leadership by example. Promoting peace and stability in the world also requires strong partners and alliances. We have never been a country that prefers to go it alone. Both Representative Waltz and I served overseas and fought alongside our foreign partners and local forces. America is strongest when we are working shoulder to shoulder with our friends. And it matters to the world that America is engaged and ready to work with others. This isn't just good politics, it is paramount to keeping our men and women out of harm's way. As we welcome in the new generation of leadership, I'm honored to receive this letter on behalf of the military veterans serving in Congress and all of our colleagues in the House and Senate. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you in the years to come.
Thank you all for being here today. I want to thank all our distinguished military leaders for being here today. Congressman Waltz, Congressman Crow, thank you for joining all of us here today. Today we reaffirm our commitment to development and diplomacy, alongside defense and protecting our national security and maintaining America's global leadership. We are here wholeheartedly to reject the President's proposal to slash the international affairs budget by 24%. His proposal would drop spending for development and diplomacy to a historic low. The commander of U.S. Central Command and Africa Command confirmed during one of our hearings that these programs are absolutely essential to keeping America safe. They help us combat threats before they reach our shores and protect us overseas. Adopting the administration's proposals cuts could lead to future instability, insurgency, and extremism, setting ourselves up to face another generation of regional conflicts. In order to keep peace with growing global challenges, we oppose deep and disproportionate cuts to these critical programs and support a bipartisan budget deal that protects resources for development and diplomacy. Because when America is a leader in promoting peace throughout the world, it makes our nation strong, prosperous, and safe. Thank you very much.
We appreciate the support of these representatives, veterans who understand the importance of what we are here to do.